involved in Stop the War over the last 15 years. I've given him the task also to talk through our anti-war charter, which is in your handouts. He collected that registration. It's none other than Chris Nineham.
Thanks, Murat. There are a whole number of reasons why I think this is a good and important time for the anti-war movement to be convening. But one of them, and in a way the most important one, is this. British foreign policy is completely broken. And it's official now. It's official now. Those who haven't been able to work it out from the carnage and the chaos spreading around the world and reported in the media on a daily basis, can look to a whole series of official government reports that have now confirmed it. And of course, we take no pleasure from being vindicated, in fact, the opposite. But if there are any journalists, I know there's going to be a lot of reporters here today, but if there are any journalists or anyone else who continue to doubt the correctness of our warnings from the anti-war movement over the last 15 years, that Western interventions would be catastrophic, incredibly bloody and completely counterproductive, then I refer them first of all to the Chilcot report, but secondly I refer them to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee report on Libya, to the parliamentary briefing on Afghanistan, and to last month's House of Commons Defence Committee on the intervention in Syria. All of these are recent reports, all official reports, and all utterly damning of the interventions that our country has been involved in over the last 15 years. And I say this because the refusal to learn from history in the British establishment over the last years appears to me to be bordering on the surreal. Andrew Murray talked earlier about yesterday's announcement. But I think that the level of delusion that exists in parts of the establishment was underlined by the fact that Tony Blair feels that it's appropriate for him to come forward and say that he's considering a return to politics. Not only that, but that serious news outlets report it as a serious news story. But equally fantastic, I believe, is the idea that escalating Western military intervention in Syria is going to help to bring an end to the war there. The suffering in Syria is appalling, but the disgraceful thing is that our leaders are mobilising and trying to use genuine outrage and genuine anger that people feel as a way to clear the path for yet another intervention for regime change. They talk about a no-fly zone in Syria as if this is some kind of novel humanitarian idea. But we need to be very, very clear that a no-fly zone in Syria will be exactly the same as the no-fly zone in Libya. It won't in fact be a no-fly zone at all. It will be a bombing corridor that will be used by Western fighters and Western planes to increase the level of destruction, the level of devastation on that country, and pile up the misery of the people in Syria who have already suffered so much. And we must oppose it loud and clear. Why this moment matters is that we now have a remarkable advantage. We clearly have, for the first time since the 1930s, a leader of the opposition who is not just anti-war, is not just anti-colonial intervention, but is someone who will stand up for these principles when it's difficult and when it matters. And that's a huge advantage for our movement. You'll hear from him later. But I think it's also important that one of the messages of this conference is that we mustn't allow politics to become a spectator sport. We mustn't allow a situation where we're passive onlookers of an unfolding situation. The fact is that we now are in a situation where there's a mini crisis, sometimes a major crisis, whenever our government tries to take us into another war. And the very fact that Jeremy is leader of the Labour Party is due to the pickets, the protests, the public meetings, the mass demonstrations, all the campaigning and petitioning that you all and we have been doing over the last 15 years, and we have to understand that. And all this explains why we're proposing to you today an anti-war charter to avert further catastrophe, to focus and to galvanise the movement, and to help seize what is a very, very real opportunity for change. Now, the proposals formulated in that statement by the Office of the Stop War Coalition, they're simple. They speak for themselves. They are, in our opinion, both popular and achievable. They call for accountability, they call for justice, they call for an end to occupation and bombing, and they call for freedom and democracy around the world. There are, of course, many other things that could have been included in this list, but we wanted to keep it concise and we wanted to keep it concentrated. People sometimes say to us, and you've probably had this experience as well, they sometimes say to us, when they hear that we're against the war, well, what would you do about it? In a kind of accusing tone, as if the only foreign policy that anyone could imagine was dropping large amounts of high explosive on innocent people. Well, here it is. Here is our response. We're proposing a series of measures that would take our foreign policy in a completely different direction. We're insisting on a real internationalism, on turning Britain into a beacon of peace rather than an organising centre for war. I hope you'll not just support the Charter later in the day, but use it over the coming weeks and months to win the argument for radical change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for very neatly introducing everyone to the anti-war charter. It's certainly food for thought. It's something I hope you'll discuss over coffees and teas and during the workshops during the rest of the day before the afternoon plenary. Can I ask